qualify. And so that all has to be proven to get the rebate. And I'll talk more about it. But then the here is more around electrification, and it is fuel-based is the goal of it. If you're on gas and you know, gas stove or something and you want to go to a cooktop, that's what this is trying to target. And it's only for low and moderate income families. But the concept is, the whole concept that we're focusing on is reducing energy costs for Georgians. I will try to go fast here. We're here, and by late fall, we're going to launch our pilot plan. And the fact is we're one of the first in the country to do this, meaning we're not behind, we're ahead of target to present this to Georgians to see if they wish to do it. It is a rebate program, so you have to make that initial decision and investment. So it's not like we're, you know, just granting money out there. They have to perform this process, and we're working through contractors to get it done. So there will be a benefit not only to the homeowner, but to the HVAC and electrical contracting community. This is about on the left side is what home energy efficiency rebates, and it's contractor guided program, and these are some of the eligible upgrades which can be included. And again, y'all have access to these slides if you want to learn about it more and reach out to us. This is the home electrification and appliance rebates. You can see that they're focused on cooktops, ranges, heat pumps, and essentially moving people, as I said, off of gas if they are interested in that. A lot of specifics here, but it's a complex program, and so you can start to see here household AMI, that's the area median income. And the area median income in our state is different by where you live, of course. And so if you're below 80% AMI in your community, then you're considered a disadvantaged home, and you get the full maximum rebate. But those numbers are over here. So I just wanted to include this to let y'all know, because there's going to be a lot more coming, and this is y'all are the tip of the spear for your community members, and just want you to be aware of these programs. And we could talk about this all day, so that's why I'm trying to move through it. There's different kinds of rebates per item that you choose to upgrade your home with. So each one of these is going to be somewhat customized, and if you're below 80% AMI, there could be a scenario by which you can't afford, or you'd have to be out of pocket for some. And we are working with, obviously Home Depot, Lowe's, all the major retailers, plus the contracting community, plus nonprofits that wish to bridge the gap. If a community member needs $15,000 worth of home upgrades to accomplish some of these things, if they're poor, that they're not going to be willing to spend even $5,000, even if they got a $10,000 rebate on the $15,000. So we're letting people know to help bridge that gap, because there's not enough money in the program to give them 100% rebate all the time. So that's the end of the energy. Again, that was more informational. I want you all to know about this program because it will be rolled out very soon. On the water side, we manage the Clean Water SRF and the Drinking Water SRF, which are two federal programs where we loan money to cities and counties to upgrade their water and sewer infrastructure. There's two new programs that came through the infrastructure law, which is lead service line replacement and emerging contaminants, which you've heard a lot about in this community in particular. And then we manage the Georgia Fund, which was created for economic development purposes, mostly because the Drinking Water SRF does not allow you to make investments in infrastructure if there's not already users. So the Georgia Fund's created to create drinking water infrastructure before there's enough homes and drinkers of the water available. And then we manage the Governor's Water Supply Fund, which is depleted of money at this point. That was Governor Deal's initiative, and we've made loans out of it, and if there's any future obligations against that, we backfill it from the Georgia Fund. This is an example of our appropriations. We don't come to the legislature generally and ask for resources, although y'all did give us $250 million last year because the Georgia Fund had not been invested in, and we'll talk more about that because the demand has gone through the roof in our state on infrastructure. You know, Dr. Bridges talked about it. The inflation has been crazy in water infrastructure. I mean, we've seen, I showed up at GFA in March of 22, and since that time we've seen, in some cases, tripling of costs, tripling for water and sewer infrastructure. But so we are a pass-through entity, so the Georgia Rural Water Association, we get money and contract with them, and then these grants to the Resource Conservation and Development Districts, and then the North Georgia Water and Planning District. Those are just monies that we, that y'all allocate to them through us. And you can see the bond funds are usually for the SRF match. So we've had to make some changes since I've become the executive director, and my goal is to preserve GFA for future generations. The demand had become so high on the Georgia Fund that we were saying yes to so many projects, and the costs were increasing, and I started to begin to worry about the future of the fund. As you know, we lend money out. It might take 3 or 4 years for a project to be invested in, but we don't see that money coming back over a 20-year period. It's what any banker would experience. We're an infrastructure bank, and we need to protect the long-term integrity of GFA. So we made some changes because of the unprecedented demand, inflationary pressures, historically low interest rates. For example, we were giving, $50 million. We have a loan for $50 million to like Gwinnett at 0.13%, and we can't do that anymore. GFA was created for small disadvantaged communities like the ones that you represent. Not all of you have disadvantaged communities, but you have pockets of disadvantaged communities within your community, within your districts. That's who GFA was built to serve, and so we have to start saying no to the large urban areas more so that we can say yes long-term to more rural communities. And so we had to have that hard conversation with many of our customers and clients around the state, and we have begun to implement those changes in the last year. The other thing the federal government did is, yes, they gave us a lot of money, but they increased the amount by which we have to give that money away in terms of principal forgiveness. It went from around 20, we had a range. It used to be 25 to 45%. Now they've mandated that we have to give away 49% of the CAP grant, the capitalization grant. And so that's money that GFA will not see back into our cash flows in the future. And we were very lenient with our customers. If they said, oh, we've got to extend our project by 2 years or whatever, we said yes with no problem. Well, now we have to get these projects completed. And so we will be charging communities. We're giving them one free modification, but in future modifications to the loan, they will be charged fees to extend those loans. We have to move the projects as we manage our cash flow. They have to move them to completion and into repayment. So those are sort of the hard things that we had to do for the preservation of GFA and our funds long term. Because of y'all's investment in GFA, we were able to raise the funds that we were able to give annually to communities out of the Georgia Fund. We used to have a $3 million per project limit on the Georgia Fund unless it was economically development related, and we've been able to raise that to $8 million. The good news for that, for your communities, is we're going to be able to say yes to a lot more loans in the Georgia Fund, which has less regulation and there's less federal requirements in the Georgia Fund than there is in the SRFs. That's some other changes that we made. But this is the way by which we prioritize disadvantaged communities. We have a very robust tool to determine whether and the benefit you get for being disadvantaged is potentially principal forgiveness or lower interest rates in better terms. So we look at these 10 factors to determine whether your area is disadvantaged. And then we provide additional benefits to the community. GEFA is already a low interest rate loan with good terms, but these are ways that you can even get better terms. One of the things that we did as we were presenting to the larger communities within Atlanta why we can't continue to lend to you at these high rates is we looked at the size of the utility. And so if you're 500 and under in terms of your connections, we're basically adding 15 points. These are some details that are a little bit too much, but we're basically giving you a higher affordability score, which means you're going to get a larger benefit with our lending program. And we've increased the local share. So for example, in the past, if, say, City of Atlanta had a $100 million project, or call it a $30 million project, we might give them $30 million. We're not doing that anymore. They're too big. Anybody that has the ability to access private capital markets, bond issuances, things of that sort, they need to go and do it that way. If you're disadvantaged and GEFA is your last resort to get lending, that's who we want to prioritize and focus on. So if you have a $30 million project in Atlanta, the max you would get is $15 million, and because it's 50% local share, but that's subject to our limits, and we've lowered our limits. So they would only get $10 million on a drinking water project. Bottom line is we're lending less money to the larger communities in Georgia to prioritize them for rural communities. Just a slide on order of magnitude of demand around the state. Clean Water State Revolving Fund. These are the pre-applications for our IUP, which is a federally mandated intended use program or intended use of the funds. So we have to do that every year, and it's good. It gives us the ability to plan. $700 million there. $1.7 billion in drinking water demand. And these annual fund limits are what we've put on. Now, granted, I will say $1.2 billion of this is all Savannah. And so that reduces it a lot, but that's still $2.7 billion statewide for water infrastructure demand around the state. So because of this, we have to prioritize loans, and this is how we're doing it. Loans in process for previous board meetings but not yet approved. Loans that qualified for principal forgiveness in a previous intended use plan. And principal forgiveness. So a lot of your communities may have principal forgiveness. We've upgraded our process to award principal forgiveness so that projects can get to yes. For example, in the past, a project may have cost $5 million, and we said through some scoring that we were going to give you $1.5 million in principal forgiveness, but then found that that wasn't enough for the community to actually move forward. So now we're underwriting them earlier in the process and getting them to yes, essentially. We're going to give them a customized amount of principal forgiveness so that they can move forward based on their financial condition. And that's helped us move more projects off the word go, in addition to ARPA money as well. And then in terms of the focus, it is based on public health and environmental compliance and loans for projects for economic development and or regional significance. We talked about needing for communities to work together for the delivery of water and utilities for sure, among other things. So that's that's the end of my presentation, and look forward to your questions.
Thank you. We really appreciate that. Your agency is so important to rural Georgia because of our small cities, small counties. How can what do you see that we need to do to help you in this particular or these particular areas?
Yeah, I don't know that I would couch it as that y'all need to help us. I mean, we're thinking about things we can do to help y'all. I think a lot of cities and counties, especially in disadvantaged areas, don't have the personnel resources to proactively lean forward to get our money.
Yep, that's right.
So, you know, we're here to help, but we're not huge. We're pretty small and lean. In fact, we're only 40 people, and that's in everybody. So in the water side, we're only 14 people. I mean, I guess getting the word out, we're constantly trying to be as smooth as we can in the application and the pre-application process to get information from communities. But one of the big challenges is audits, and Greg Griffin does a great job. He is on our board. But the challenge with communities getting an audit, because we can't lend to them unless they have 2 years of audited financials, and many communities struggle to put that together. And I know, like I said, Greg, I know is working on this to potentially make that easier, and I think that in partnership with GFA, right now it's a system where they're either red or green, and I want to know if a community's, let's just say, yellow. Like, what I need to know, what do I need to do to get you from red to green? And you know, we just want to be helpful because we're happy to lend, but I worry about what Dr. Bridges was talking about. I mean, we're a lender, and so we have to make sure the community can pay us back. So from an underwriting standpoint, they have to pass our underwriting, which we have very favorable, much more favorable terms than the private capital markets. But these communities need auditors to be able to help them get through that process.
And our state auditor is working with this committee, and we will make our presentation for legislation this coming year.
Oh, great.
And so hopefully we're going to be able to assist the cities and counties with a better way in which we do our audits that would help us in the long run with our loans on this particular, and certainly help your thing there.
I got a question.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How can we schedule a session for you all to come into our districts to meet our officials, our city council people, our mayors, so that they can get a better understanding of the process of applying?
It's a great question. The answer is you could reach out to me and I get our water division director, Judy Adler, to come out there because she's the expert on that process. What I would tell you too is all these communities lean heavily on their engineer that they've hired to design these projects, and they usually know what our process is, and part of their value add is helping those communities, you know, get financing from us. But we're happy to host as much in community or on a big Zoom call or whatever you think's best to get information out. But it does require the financial acumen of the community to understand about debt. And so we work with them too, for example, on rate studies. How is your community charging for water? Is it appropriate for what your next door neighbors charging their customers and clients for water? So helping them with all those things is important. And we're happy to do that. We're available to do that.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Well, Hunter, thank you for coming. Thank you for what you do for our areas, and certainly we look forward to working with you in the coming months.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you.
Thank you, Let me stop in.
Okay. Very quickly now, lunch is going to be provided for the legislators and staff here at the pavilion. We're not going out to try to keep y'all on task there. So audience members can find lunch options on Berry College main campus at the Cranert Center. And if Katie has other suggestions, certainly see her. Audience members will need to exit and circle back to Berry College main campus entrance, and then we're going to have lunch and talk a little bit, and then we're going to start promptly back at 1 o'clock on that. And this morning I forgot to introduce an individual that has been with us all day from Legislative Council, Stuart Morelli. Stuart is here to help us, guide us through this process and listen to us. And Stuart, we appreciate you coming. Make sure you see Stacy to give her your mileage, and before some of you leave for the funeral. Okay? All right, restrooms are back there, and we'll see y'all at 1.